Quick question. Are you doing yoga or watching yourself do yoga? It's an easy habit and a very human one, but yoga is not a visual practice. In this episode, we gently turn away from the mirror and back towards what yoga actually feels like. So let's get started. Welcome to the Youthful Older Yogi podcast. I'm MJ Waddell, your host and founder of Share Yoga. I've been teaching, practicing, and loving yoga for nearly 30 years. I'm an advocate of movement, creativity, and staying healthy in mind and body after 50. It's never too late to start, and there's a lot of healthy years ahead. So let's start now. Hi, everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in to the Youthful Older Yogi. I'm MJ Waddell, the creator and founder of Share Yoga and your host for this podcast. This episode is entitled, Yoga is Not a Visual Practice, and Moving Beyond the Mirror. So let me just start by saying that mirrors have been a big part of my professional life. And an important part. So I grew up dancing and performing and spending hours in studios where the mirror wasn't just in the room, it really was the reference point for everything. And that kind of training stays with you. So I understand why we rely on mirrors for movement practices, which may include yoga as well. But lately I've been asking a bit of a different question. Are we using mirrors to support the practice, or are we using them to quietly judge ourselves the entire time? So when I first stepped into a yoga class in 1996, I remember specifically there were no mirrors. And my gosh, I wasn't watching myself anymore. So I felt this big sense of relief. There was no checking. There was no correcting. No silently critiquing every angle of my body. It was just movement, breath, sensation, and freedom. And that's when I began to understand that something that stayed with me ever since. Yoga is not a visual practice. It is a felt practice. And so recently I've been teaching at a 55 plus community. I've been teaching there for 2 years, and I've been teaching in a smaller room while they were waiting for their clubhouse to be completed. Well, the clubhouse was just completed a couple weeks ago, and it's gorgeous. It's open, it's bright, and it's quiet. They call it the movement room, and it can hold about 30 people, where previously I was only allowed to have 12 in the room due to fire codes. And one side of the walls, complete mirrors. And of course, when people came into the movement room for the first time, many of them naturally positioned themselves to face the mirrors so they could see themselves. And some even asked me, shouldn't we face the mirror so we can check our alignment? And I understand that question completely, because I know how many of us have been taught to learn movement by looking. So I've made a very intentional choice, and I don't have my class face the mirror. Not because the mirrors are bad, but because I don't want their attention pulled outwards when the whole purpose of yoga practice is to draw your attention inwards. And yes, sometimes when you're teaching a pose or something, there can be confusion or curiosity. And we're used to thinking if I can see it, I can fix it. But I don't think yoga really works that way. We don't just observe ourselves when we're looking in a mirror. We evaluate ourselves, and we don't just notice. We start comparing ourselves with others in the class. And then the practice can shift from the feeling practice into a judging practice. So, and it's not about breath or sensation or awareness anymore. It becomes more about, do I look right? And that question has nothing to do with yoga. And so this is where language really matters, sometimes more than we realize. Let's take Warrior Two, for example. Once you've set them up safely, and you can share with them the intent of the pose. So Warrior Two is a foundational yoga pose. It builds lower body strength, and it opens the hips and the chest, and it boosts stamina. And so once they're in there, in whatever shape that they can manage, that's when you might add some curiosity prompts. Like, do you sense strength in both legs? Is one working more than the other? Or can you find balance between them? And then notice your arms. Are they reaching evenly away from your center? Is your gaze steady? Is it focused, or does it start to wander? And how is your breath supporting you here? Can you help it stay steady without hardening? So you don't have to say all these prompts. These are just a few things you might consider saying so they can start to feel in their body whatever sensations arise. Things like, this is a strong, steady pose. See if you can feel that sense of readiness without tension. Or what I like to say many times is, you're strong, you're steady, and you're ready like a warrior. So that's an example. Instead of having them visualize or, see their reflection in the mirror of themselves in a warrior pose, you can set them up. You become their mirror. You're watching them. And then you can bring your cues into whatever you're seeing, align your cues with whatever you're seeing. Let's do another example of tree pose. Instead of focusing where the foot goes, either at the ankle, above or below the knee, you can just start to guide the experience. And again, you can set the intention of the pose. Of course, it's a balancing pose. And it's this rooting of one leg and grounding, and then feeling a lift through the spine, like you're growing upward like a tree, keeping the gaze soft and steady, keeping the breath steady, and of course, expecting wobbling. And wobbling is not a mistake. That's the body doing the work of balancing. So each time you shift, you just come back to that sense of grounding and then that sense of lift. And sometimes I like to tell my students, even if you find one steady breath, that's enough. That's the practice. So again, it's their experience of it, and you are guiding their experience of it. You don't know what they're feeling, so it's no teacher can really know that. And here's another thing I've noticed many times, and I've been teaching a long time. I tend to say the words beautiful, that looks good, perfect. And I understand why I say it. I'm trying to encourage or to support them and to affirm that everything that they're doing is great. But even that language can keep you outside of the body. So I found that over time, I'm trying to change my language. So here's a few things I say. Instead of commenting on how something looks, I try to guide the attention inwards. So you might try saying things like, notice what you're feeling here, see where you're working, see where you might be able to soften, stay with your breath, explore what feels supportive for your body today. And you might stay here or you might ease out of it a little bit. If it feels too much, just back off. Explore what works for you today. And not every pose feels good every day. So in that way, they're not trying to match anything, a visual match. They're just participating in the experience of yoga. And remember, I'm not a mirror. We're not the mirrors. We can see patterns. We can offer guidance. We can support alignment in a functional way. But again, I cannot know someone's experience just by looking at them. Honestly, no teacher can. And it's not just the mirrors in the room. The social media. We're surrounded by images of yoga everywhere on social media now, ads online, and we see many times these very advanced poses, deep back bends, arm balances, shapes that honestly look like you're a circus performer and that most people aren't interested in doing and frankly cannot do. And over time, these images start to define what we think yoga is. So if someone sees an ad like that in an advanced pose and they think, I'll never be able to do that. I'm not flexible enough. That's not for me. And just like that, they're out even before they begin. But here's the thing. Those images are that. They're just images. And when we rely on those visuals, we start doing the same thing in the mirror. We compare, we judge, we decide whether we belong. And none of that has anything to do with yoga. Because remember, yoga is not a visual practice, it's a felt practice. It's not about achieving a shape. It's not about being flexible. It's not about looking a certain way in the pose. It's about what you're experiencing in the pose. Awareness, breath, sensation, presence, freedom. And you can't capture that in a photograph. So if you are practicing in a room with mirrors, if you're a student, here's a few simple things you might try, experiment with. Depending on, your environment and how the teacher sets you up, if you're facing the mirror, see if you can try a full class or maybe even part of a class where you don't intentionally look at yourself. So the gaze can be sort of down, a little unfocused on yourself. And if it feels accessible, try closing your eyes just for one breath at a time when you're in a safe pose or a safe posture. And you can also choose a point of the room that is not you and rest your attention there. If you're a teacher and you teach in a room with mirrors, and if you're able to, consider starting the class facing away from the mirror. And then start to offer sensory-based cues instead of visual cues. Invite students into a sense of feeling rather than fixing. And occasionally remind them that you don't need to look at this to experience it. The mirror will always reflect something back to you, but yoga is asking a different question entirely. Not, what do I look like in this, but what is happening inside me right now? And when we begin to practice that way, we discover something quietly powerful. Yoga is not a visual practice, it's a felt practice. So I hope that helps a little bit. I'm not saying mirrors are a bad thing, but again, as I've been teaching for a number of years, I'm just questioning some things about using mirrors and inviting the students that I teach, and myself included, to just experience what yoga brings to them and what it brings to me. Before I close, I do want to invite you to visit my website, shareyogawithmj.com, shareyogawithmj.com. I am hosting a retreat September 29th through October 3rd. This is in 2026 on the exquisite coastal island of Bald Head Island, North Carolina. I am in the process of making a short video on it. Then you can find it here on my YouTube channel if you're watching YouTube. Also, YouTube channel, it's The Youthful Older Yogi. You can find me anywhere where you find your podcasts. But I want to invite you to just consider taking a 5-day retreat. It's called Nurture and Nourish, and it's a beautiful way to unplug, reconnect. I did it last year, and I'm excited to do it again. So I hope you'll join us and on this beautiful line. It's very small, just 6 to 10 women, so don't hesitate to reach out to me if you're ready to register. So other than that, please, if you can write some kind of a testimonial, if you're liking this podcast, it really will help. So you can thumbs up, like, follow, subscribe. All of that is free. And of course, always subscribe to my newsletter. I give away a free meditation every newsletter. And if you're a teacher, you're welcome to use it or try it out for yourself or your students or both. Again, thank you so much for being here. And until we meet again, keep sharing yoga. Namaste.
Thank you so much for listening. Now you can go to my show notes on YouTube or Buzzsprout and send me a voicemail or email. I'd love to hear what topics you'd like me to speak about, what your thoughts are on the episodes, and maybe I'll share your message on a future episode. Please subscribe to my website, shareyogawithmj.com, so you can receive my newsletters and be first to know about my retreats, workshops, courses, and freebies. If you navigate on social media, you can find me mostly on Facebook and a bit on Instagram at Mary Jane Waddell. That's Jane with a Y, Jayne. This podcast would not be possible without the help of my editor, Dan Jones from Cocoa Beach Productions. You can find Dan at cocoabeachweb.com. And of course, thanks to my generous guests who share their time, insights, and youthful wisdom. Remember, the Youthful Older Yogi podcast is presented solely for educational, inspirational, and entertainment purposes. It is not intended as a substitute for a physician or other qualified professionals. Okay, yogis, stay well, stay youthful, and keep sharing yoga.